Hello, this is Simracing Corner, and Beta 5 has now arrived. I think what came last night, didn't it? Well, it depends, obviously, your time zone. But yes, it's hot on the trail of Beta 4, which came out on Saturday. And in the patch notes for Beta 4, the devs did say they're going to talk about the release date and stuff around that. So it's pretty cryptic, but so luckily we didn't have to wait very long because it's only been a couple of days since the last patch. So I'm going to talk about that first because I think that's quite important because the general changelog in Beta 5 isn't that extensive, and the most interesting thing is the release. So that's coming out in a week's time, so at the end of March, and so not long to wait now. And first off, thanks again, thank you Jimmy for posting the patch notes and also your comments, which I've left in. If you check under the video description, you'll find those patch notes, and you'll see something labelled at the top, Jimmy's comments. So that's him. That's the chap who's been helping me out by sending me this information. Right. So the first thing is it's going to be coming out in early access in when it drops, and there will be a 40% discount on the base game. So we would expect the game to be, I think, $50 retail as the kind of the price which I think that's what they're looking to go for. So with the 40% discount, we're looking, in the kind of $30 range, which does make it really good value. So I'm not sure what that'll be in pounds if you're, a Brit in my country, of course. Maybe £25, something like that. Exchange rate is terrible at the moment, isn't it? But yeah, maybe about £25 for us here. Obviously, it doesn't matter to me. I've already bought the beta. That may annoy some people that did buy into the beta. Although, if you bought into the beta, which was just over $100, cost me about £90 when I bought into it. That does give you upcoming DLC for the next 12 months, and they do have DLC plans, paid for DLC. So that's not included, obviously, in the base game. So there should still be a cost saving over that course of what people that paid for the beta and will make over that year long term. But yeah, some people were a bit narked on the Visa forums, and they did actually say if you're unhappy, you can get a refund, and then will revoke your Steam key, which means you can either buy it again, the early access version of it, and have that 40% saving, and then you're going to have to buy the DLC as anyone else would. I don't have a problem. I'm just going to carry on what I've got because there's still a net saving over the year, including the DLC. And the fact is, I would have bought the DLC anyway, so that's all good. What's interesting also is I didn't think they obviously didn't plan it to be early access. They've gone to early access because they're obviously behind schedule on delivering the content and everything they need to bring a game in, as a 1.0 non-early access game, as a proper game. And because the thing is, beta and early access are fairly interchangeable in my opinion, and so effectively you're kind of getting a later version of the beta, because next week I'm not sure how much they're going to deliver in the rest of the content. I had a quick eyeball of Automobilista 1 to look at to see what was missing from 1 to 2, and there's 10 tracks which are not featured in AMS2 yet, and there's a bunch of cars that haven't come over either. So there's quite a lot of actual car and track content which hasn't been ported over, because it's worth noting that Reza did say the plan for Automobilista 2 is all of Automobilista 1 content, including all the paid for DLC over the time, over the existence of Automobilista 1, goes over to the base game of Automobilista 2. subsequent DLC afterwards will be new content. They are planning to have GT4 and GT3 and some other stuff later in the year, and not that far off actually. Really after release, so some of that DLC is dropping quite early on. But yeah, I'm not sure if that will be pushed back since the game is still, it's still not finished. But it's kind of halfway there, I'd say, at this point in time in a lot of areas. Because with Beta 5, they've made some changes. They've added a suspension to the setup screen. Previously, it was just it was very basic. It's basic stuff of, I can't remember, it's tire pressures and some other kind of basic things, but it's very limited. And now it has suspension setup screen, which again is still not a complete setup, a complete kind of amount of setups you would expect. So yeah, it's still limited at this point. They also made some changes to the physics in the game. FFB, force feedback, has been changed a bit, and I will cover that because that's quite an important one. They have done some AI adjustments, which I have to say haven't really changed some of the problems I've found, where on the turn one, right off the start finish, when you start a race, they have a collision. They still kind of crash into each other, which you can mitigate to some degree by running fewer than the full field of cars. So rather than running 29, run 15, and it seems to be better, but not always perfect. It does seem to be kind of car specific, and sometimes car and track specific. So not every race you're going to have will have that problem, but it does happen a lot, and that's obviously quite a problem. It shouldn't happen, and that needs to be fixed over time. What else do we have? They've done some bits to the audio on the sprint race cars, some track stuff, bits and pieces. So there's not a ton of things really in the Beta 5. Can you see? It's just a page of A4 for Beta 5. For Beta 4, it was like a page and a half of changes. So that was a lot more stuff, which is fair enough. But yeah, I think the most concerning thing, I guess, that it's coming out in a week and we're missing out a lot of things here still. So you can see here is we have the interface here, and we don't have, there's no championship mode yet. There's no time trials. That one will probably be easy to do. This one is certainly need a fair amount of work. I think people have been mentioning that multiplayer is a bit flaky. I have to say I don't know. I haven't actually tried the multiplayer, so I don't know what the state of it is. And I'm not sure what extra features they're trying to put into the multiplayer. I think are they trying to put in like safety license type of model into it, so you can set parameters for hosting a server where you earn a safety rating over time, like iRacing style. I'm not sure. I think that's what they do want to try, but I don't know what the deal of that is. I haven't read much into that, but I think there's something which would be good, of course. So yeah, a bunch of things still not here, including, like I said, a bunch of cars, a bunch of tracks. So in a week's time, can they deliver all of that? No, I don't think that's possible, which is why they are running in early access. So, and I think at least to hit that deadline of their promise to be out by the end of March. So they're going to be able to do that, and it'll still be a fair game. I've had a lot of fun in it still. I still find, there's I've run a lot of videos, to date out there. I haven't run every car yet, but I'm almost there. And some things are great, some things are okay, and some things are a little bit kind of a little bit more iffy. But on the whole, it's in a good shape where there is good content in there, and it's not that hard to find. And there are some good cars in there, so I'm pretty happy with it. So let's talk about the force feedback. So let's go straight into here, and there you go. Where am I? Controls, that's it. On the actual Beta 5 notes, the revision, the actual changes to the force feedback is only one line, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually made quite a difference. So what they stated is revised pneumatic trail values and max steering rack force for each car, and in brackets minor adjustments may still be required. And I expect that in brackets is the case. So the force feedback has changed actually quite a bit, in a positive way and slightly in an odd way that I need to get used to as well, but nothing terrible. So don't worry about that. Right, so I'm actually in my BETA4 video, I talked about low force boost and having to use that because I was having trouble getting a good weight out the wheel when I was going around slow corners. And that was the case. It worked. I put the low force boost to I think 40 in my last video, and for the BETA4 video. And you can see here, I've put it back to 5. I put it down to 5. And in fact, I don't think I need any, but I've just been testing different values before starting this video, and I've left it on 5. I've also reduced the FX. I think I had it on 50 or maybe 60. I'm not sure. Put that down a little bit as well. I'm not sure if that's changed, but I've just been messing around with things, to be honest. But the most bigger change I've done is actually more significant thing is I've had to change the gain values because the force feedback strength has changed quite a lot actually. It's kind of weird. I was running around 30 for most cars except open wheelers. Open wheelers, I had to run at 40 gain. And then that felt about right for me. But for the prototypes and pretty much everything else, it was around 30, maybe about 28, 26 to 30. And now I have to run it lower because the weight of the wheel actually feels a lot heavier, and the low force boost is no longer necessary going around corners. There is I have to say there's a better feel actually of the feeling of the wheel, of the actual grip and the weight transfer of the car in slower corners now. And obviously it's hard to really show you on a video here, but I'll try and talk through it anyway. So I'll run this because this is the one I've ran many times, the Metal Moros at Ibarra, I don't know, could be wrong. And I'll do 15 opponents because just to avoid the big smash. There'll still be a bit of a smash, and that just proves they haven't fixed this yet. It does need some work. I also tried the sprint cars as well on this track, and they have the same sort of problem as well. So yeah, it's a little bit of a picky mix really, but what you do really, it's not too terrible, but yeah, it does spoil it a little bit. Okay, so I'll let them get ahead a bit anyway. I don't really need to worry about racing them. But at least I'll keep up with them for a bit so you can see if they manage to stay on track, which is unlikely. But we're obviously here to talk about the force feedback fill now and how it's changed. So there you go, there's one. That's pretty good for them. Normally I'd expect 3 or 4 to go off, but that's okay. Oh, okay. There you go. Spoke too early. So yeah, the wheel is definitely heavier, and so I've reduced the force feedback because when you're under speed, obviously the wheel becomes harder to turn, and under those long curves, you definitely get a strong feeling of resistance. But where it's actually improved a little bit more, which I like, is going around these corners, these slow corners. The wheel resistance is good, but there's definitely a greater feeling of dynamic grip, but very much like in Automobilista 1, in a different way, because that force feedback did feel a bit different, did feel quite different to be fair. But I know I'm making much more mini corrections because I can feel the car is because when you're going around the corner and trying to get putting the throttle down. It's not linear, is it? The car is kind of struggled to find tyre grip, and I can certainly feel it now. I can feel the car kind of really trying to grab, the rubber trying to grab the tarmac, and when I'm pushing it too much, I can feel it slipping. and I'm able to make these smaller corrections immediately, almost like instinctively, which is really nice actually, because it makes it more interesting as well. Even though with Beta 4 I didn't have a problem with it. It felt okay to me. This is nicer. It is a bit nicer. The other thing they've also improved on, or in fact I think added, was some of these flat curbs like this, where there's not much to them. Before, when you went over them, you got no feeling through the wheel. Although they're obviously subtle, they're obviously not like, particularly bumpy. You can get a feeling of that texture through it. I know it's very light, but I can feel it, and it's there where they didn't have that before. You just went over it and you didn't feel anything. It was just like going over the rest of the road. So that's nice as well. But I have to say, they did have some of that feeling going through the tactile through my transducers. When I was going over these sort of bumps, you can actually feel it through the tactile. I'm not running the tactile now because I just want to focus on the feel through the wheel. But it's much nicer. I can definitely feel the those curbs, and I can feel how they kind of grab and kind of trying to pull the car when you're going over those curbs. So that's nice as well. So force feedback has improved, but you will need to go and adjust it again from what you had before. Well, there goes my phone. I'm just going to pause it for the moment. Excuse me. While I answer the phone. Sorry about that. Just needed to answer the phone. Where was I? I can't remember what I was talking about now. Maybe I should move on. Anyway, well, force feedback. Yep, force feedback. You'll probably need to change your settings and just kind of mess around with that. Go on track. Just try it out. Quit the track. Go to the force feedback. Blah blah blah. And just do that until you get it working again, because it feels like I had to do some fairly significant changes. So that's okay. It didn't take too long since there's only there's not many settings, so it's hard to it's not too frustrating. One thing which is a little bit still not kind of consistent is open wheelers. You need to up the, and I'll show you this for open wheelers. I used to run them at 40. Now I'm running them at 35. Like I said, I'm still setting it a bit lower because the force feedback feels stronger now, and but I still have to raise it. And I did want to test this one, which I did try out, and I do want to mention something here because it's quite good. Was it? No, it wasn't that. It was the Formula V12s. Okay. Let's try this Imola. So I recorded the video of this already, and this was I don't know if it's pre Beta 4 or on Beta 4, I can't remember now. So we're at Imola, and this particular Formula car is really difficult to get off the line without spinning it unless you're really careful with your throttle input. And also when you were going around some of the slow corners, when you went down to second gear, when you're going back up to speed, you have to be really, really careful because it's very easy to spin if you weren't just putting your throttle down very, very carefully. And that definitely has changed. You can slam it a little bit more, and it's a lot easier. So it's certainly more forgiving because. Before it took me a while to understand how to just get off the line without spinning it, and I just pressed the clutch instead of the brake by accident. Whoops. I'm actually liking the force feedback in these Formula cars. Actually feels a bit nice as well, since there's a little bit more variation in the force feedback in the dynamic feel, especially in these faster cars where things are changing very rapidly and you need to know what's going on, because it's easy to overcook stuff. I'm certainly feel I've got a little bit more feel from the wheel, and it's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more exciting. So yeah, I'm kind of liking the feel of these Formula cars now with the new force feedback. It's pretty cool. and it certainly makes them easier to drive as well because the force feedback has improved. So yeah, there's force feedback. I mean, it will depend on the car to car whether or not the changes in the force feedback is going to be an aid or not. And to be fair, with a direct drive wheel, you get so much more higher resolution and the fidelity of those effects. It's certainly going to be more useful than say my G29. Which in that case you sort of learn to drive these cars a bit differently because you don't have the same information coming through your wheel. But that's definitely one of the benefits of these direct drive wheels is you feel everything. It's amazing. Every little bit, every time the car is getting pushed too far, you feel it immediately, and you have the opportunity to correct it or ignore it, but it certainly gives you an advantage, and it's certainly more exciting when you're fighting the wheel like that, I have to say, which is what I love about my direct drive wheel. I mean, yeah, I did a terrible job there, but that's not new, is it? But there you go. So yeah, that's improved. I haven't checked anything else out actually. I haven't tried any other cars. I did briefly look at the carts again because they had made a change to the vehicles. The cart, the GX390 race car, the fixed steering wheel axis, which is I'm assuming it was just the steering rack. They didn't have that correct. The steering rotation angle wasn't set right. However, what they haven't fundamentally changed, which I'll show you again actually. I know this is a bit boring, but maybe you haven't seen this. Let's go to these. Carts. So the 125cc cart is fine. Those two, it's these two ones that are just. Oh no. Yep, the shifter cart's okay. It's these two middle ones, the 390s. They and I'll show you again just to demonstrate how they can't be right. I mean, unless you know better than me, right? You can tell me if I'm completely wrong about this. But watch the pedal camera and look how I'm just going to floor it, and these carts simply are just going at a snail's pace. It's ages to get up to any sort of speed, and it just isn't right. So I'm wondering why. I wonder why this hasn't been fixed. Okay, so watch this. So I'm flooring it, and I'm going 7 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour. 12. Just see how slow that is. I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? So obviously that doesn't work correctly. What would be nice actually, because obviously sometimes developers in patch notes they also talk about things which they have known bugs and errors, which they haven't done here, which is kind of fair enough since obviously there's lots of things they need to fix and implement. But that one is clearly broken. That they shouldn't really have those two carts in the game until they fix that, because it is just bizarre why they would bother. Honestly, to be honest. Yeah, and I think that kind of covers it really. I've covered everything, isn't it? Yep. So in a week's time, you'll be able to buy it in early access, 4 to 8 weeks. It should be an early access for, and they should have got through everything. And considering they are, each time they are releasing these patches, there is nice changes. They are doing kind of some big things here and there. So based on that, I'd imagine maybe 4 weeks is maybe a little bit too optimistic, but 8 weeks, I don't see why not. They could, a couple of months, they should probably have it all sorted out to a point. Obviously, still making sort of small adjustments over time after that, but I can imagine they can get all that content they need to get in there from Automobilista 1, get all the features implemented, and it should be in good state. And one thing, I'm going to say this actually. I want to say this. This is not Project Cars 2, okay? And there are people who haven't even bought the beta, who are basically somehow have beef with Automobilista. I don't know why, or whatever, or even Project Cars 2. I don't know. But if you see stuff, people saying, "Oh, it's Project Cars 2, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, Project Cars 2 this, Project Cars 2 that," they don't know what they're talking about. Honestly, they don't. This is not Project Cars 2. Think of this as a sim racing title that's trying to achieve the same level of, I guess, simulation as, say, R Factor 2, ACC, and to an extent Race Room, because Race Room is kind of is a sim title, isn't it? But yeah, some things aren't quite perfect in that one, but but it's on that same level of trying to be a simulation and not a and not and I'm not going to say simcade or anything like that, but because I don't think that's a I don't think even it wasn't really a simcade, was it? I don't know what Project Cars 2 was, but it had a lot of problems. It had a lot of problems with the handling and everything else. It does not share the problems from Project Cars 2. Understand that clearly. It is not Project Cars 2. Okay, the physics are different. It uses the same physics toolkit. It's not the same physics models. The data that's been put into these cars. The force feedback has been scrapped from Project Cars 2. Reza have rewritten the force feedback code. It's completely different. What you have is the graphics engine. It's the same. The physics engine is the same. It's not the same physics, and that's a very different thing. Okay, and so do bear that in mind. If you are concerned that somehow, because it looks Project Cars 2 like, because it does, it's using the same graphics engine, it's going to look similar. Sim racing titles do look quite similar. You got tracks, you got cars. They're going to look quite similar, and especially when you've got graphics engines, a bit like Unreal games that are made with Unreal. Have an Unreal Engine look to them, and this has a Madness Engine look to the visuals. But what it does have the benefit of those of what made that a really good graphics engine, which is very well optimized. It has a really good VR support, and that's what you're getting with Automobilista 2. So it's taking all the good things which from the Madness engine and basically doing a really good job with everything else. Things which Slightly Mad Studios failed to do with Project Cars 2, sadly. Obviously Project Cars 2 had a ton of content, had lots of cars, lots of tracks, which were great, looked good. Driving the cars was a bit of hit and miss, wasn't it? And that was the problem you had with Project Cars 2. And of course, it's not like everything's perfect in Automobilista 2, but it is the beta and it will be in early access. But there's so much things which work really well in Automobilista 2 that you can tell by all the good things that all they need to do is bring up some of the kind of the things which aren't quite working right up to the same level, and they will. I can see they will. They're working very hard, and so I've got no problem in recommending it, especially when it's going to be a 40% discount. I think it's absolutely get it. And if you are not a fan of Automobilista in general because of the unfamiliar tracks and the unfamiliar cars, which there is a lot of, you do have 2 hours you can buy it on Steam, try it for 2 hours. If you hate it because you don't like Automobilista 1 content, then to be fair, what you can do is just basically refund it. But don't write it off. It's not Project Cars 2, and don't listen to the jerks that say it is, because they don't know what they're talking about. They really don't. The idea of Automobilista 2 is to be Automobilista 1 with the advantages of a new graphics engine, which includes day and night cycles, racing and wet weather, and just basically and VR support, and just looking up to date, looking like a modern game. That's what it's trying to achieve, and it's getting there, And I'm saying I'm enjoying it, even though there are things which aren't perfect in it. I'm enjoying most of it, and I'm not, and even the parts when it's not quite perfect, I can look past it because it's not actually. There's nothing, game breaking other than those stupid carts. Everything else works very well, So. So yeah, it is a really good title. I like it. I'm going to continue playing it after it comes out. I certainly won't be bringing as many videos out as I did before, because I should probably do something in a race here while I chat away, shouldn't I? Do something easy. I don't think I have much more to say, to be honest, guys. Anyway, but this will be like. But anyway, like I said, yeah, I don't know, I'm just chit-chatting really. But I say I'm looking forward to it. Drop your comments, let me know what you think about the beta, if you've been playing it, or if you have, or if you've been following my videos. Let me know if you're going to buy it. You know, I think it's worth it. I'm enjoying it, and I think it'd be a shame if what puts you off is me not being able to drive, which is like that. But this is a shifter cart. Yeah, but if there's reasons why you're being put off about it, you know, such as some of the tracks. I can understand that these are unfamiliar tracks, and not everyone's going to feel very, you know, not it's going to be unfamiliar stuff. But the Brazilian tracks are really good. They're actually really well done. They know how to make tracks, and just because you don't see it in anything else doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. They're actually very good. It's nice to have a bit of variation as well. And look at Raceroom, they have a bunch of very unusual tracks, European tracks that are only in Raceroom, and yeah, people like those. There's nothing, and yeah, so yeah, why not give this a go? But I do hope. One thing I do hope that they do get licenses for some of the more familiar tracks that people expect to see at games. Obviously, they have Imola. I think Hockenheim will come to this. We have Brands Hatch. Can't think of anything else which is that familiar in Automobilista, which is supposed to come over to here. But I think Snetterton. Yeah, so some UK tracks. Silverstone is coming later in the year. And I think they probably are working on. I'm sure they are working on trying to get more car licenses and track licenses. But it really depends, I guess, if they sell enough units of Automobilista 2, and whether or not they can get a licensing deal which is they can afford. I think that's a lot. You know, they are a small developer, and I think they're kind of playing it by ear, some of what they're doing. But I wish them, I wish them well. They're doing a really good job here. I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting my money's worth out of the beta, so I'm glad I bought into it, and I'm glad I was able to obviously bring you guys a bunch of these videos to show you what it's like, and also for me to drive badly in these drive and talk things, because it's really difficult. It is really difficult. Anyway, I think I've covered everything I want to cover. I don't have anything more to say. I'm going to get back to some other bits and pieces that I've got some other things I want to record today. So I'll upload this and I'm going to get on with other things. Yeah, so well, thanks for watching. Happy simming. Drop your comments below the video. I'll be happy to converse back to you. And but yeah, week's time. The early access. So yeah, I'll probably bring out a video when that comes as well. When that drops, I will check that out and just see how it's changed since this beta, because this is the last beta anyway. Okay, so let's finish it here. Okay, well, I'm going to say it again. I keep saying the same thing. Okay, bye. That's it. Bye. I'm just going now. Bye.